All right, so grade sevens and eights, I wanted to kind of go over this with you guys. There's a couple of different ways that you can go about actually organizing an essay. And they range from like the one end of the spectrum, which is I'm just getting by, I'm just getting it done, all the way up to the, I'm a wordsmith and writing is something I do for fun and I want to just kill this essay, not just to get good marks, but to build my ability to communicate, I guess. So inside of that spectrum of getting by to killing it, we have a couple of different options in there. So some of you guys are going to know that you probably, as far as your writing, are much more in the getting by end of things. Now, I'm going to go back to this outline here and go back to that essay question and the examples that between myself and Mr. Chabot we were kind of using. But inside of this outline, you are able to do actually all three different levels. And if you want to get more close to the killing it into things, I have stuff, Mr. Chabot has stuff that we can give you guys that will help really build your essay writing skills so that this year and years in the future, you are able to, do an amazing job. That is, again, our ultimate goal. But we understand that some of you guys realistically are going to be successful, like very successful for yourself with I got the essay done. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go back to this outline. This opening, it really doesn't change for any one of those essay levels. Okay, you still need to decide on an opinion. So for this Japan essay, you're gonna have to decide on where you fall on that question. Should Japan have gone into isolation? Should they have not gone into isolation? I'll talk about that in the next video here in a little bit. So where do you fall on the question of, was isolation a good thing? And so that is going to happen for all three levels. Getting by, doing a good essay and a killing it essay, you're all going to have to come up with some kind of decision on Japan's decision to go into isolation. You're going to have to come up with an opinion on that. All three of you guys are going to have to come up with minimum of 3 arguments that you're going to make to validate or prove what you're trying to say, your opinion, to prove your opinion. So you're going to have to come up with 3 arguments, and then you're going to have to write it all out in a thesis statement. So this opening and closing paragraph really don't change a lot. Okay? What does change is your body paragraphs a lot more. So body paragraphs are going to be really where essays are won and lost, if you want to think about it that way. Each of these body paragraphs, again, in the last video I mentioned, they're all basically the same in layout, but it depends on what you're going to do with them after that. So you're going to have to take one of your arguments from this body or from this opening paragraph, argument 1, and just sandwich it in here and write it in a nice, complete sentence. So whatever your argument was, you're going to have to stick with it. So 3 arguments. Argument 1 goes here. This really is... It's easier when you have an essay that you're more passionate about to get to go past the doing well. So if you are passionate about something, you can go out and find stuff that you would never otherwise be able to find. That's why, like when we were talking earlier about buying a cell phone as an example, that particular argument or that particular issue is easier for a kid, no offense, to get a little bit more passionate about. And so with that in mind, what ends up happening is you, the writer, can find another level of like oomph behind your argument. And I'm not going to lie to you, I know that it's hard to find that passion behind Japan and its isolation and its history and its future because, I don't know that any of you guys are Japanese of origin. And so there's then a lot of like personal connection to it. So again, this is differentiating between getting by. And so for lots of you guys, if you don't have a ton of passion, you may have to write more in the getting by stages or the getting by levels. So in these body paragraphs, you're going to have to try and find some amount of like reason to care. Your arguments fit there. Your supporting evidence is something that research will have to create. You're going to have to go out and find evidence to support. If you're saying that Japan should have never gone into isolation, that isolation is a bad thing, you're going to have to go and research and find evidence that says isolationist policies fail. And there are examples out there where isolationism has done harm to countries, has put them behind. And you can use Japan's isolation policy. You can write this a lot of different ways. I've seen kids write their paragraphs about how fear controls people. Again, that's a higher level of thinking, and doing a more abstract concept and applying it to Japan is a higher level of writing, a higher level of thinking. So for the just getting by guys and girls out there, just to simplify it with your organization, I would lean more towards a very simplified version of going into isolation. Was it a good or bad thing? The experience of being in isolation, was it a good or bad thing? Coming out of isolation, was that decision wise or unwise? And you can see that that's a pretty simplistic argument. It's sequential, so it makes sense in sequence. But it is a more, I've done the requirements. I've written 3 paragraphs, 3 body paragraphs. Paragraph 2 is about going into isolation. Paragraph 3, this third body paragraph, is about the time in isolation, what the good or bad may have been there. And paragraph 4 is about the good or bad of coming out of isolation. And again, you can write anywhere on the continuum. You can write that isolation was the greatest thing, but they should have come out of isolation earlier. You can write that isolation is the worst thing, but they made the most out of it while they were in it. There's lots of different ways to write this. So the doing well essays aren't that different, but it actually is just what ends up happening with essays when you get a little higher up. We as teachers differentiate based off of the degree to which, like the level at which a kid can get an idea across and pull other things in that make us go, oh wow, that's well thought out. That's not just that getting by stage of essay, but this is a doing well. This kid understands and is able to bring in outside situations to help make the connections. So in that doing well one, I know that for my class, I've mentioned the idea of you guys as students being in isolation and being able to take a concept that is outside of Japan, but apply it to the Japan essay. That gets you closer to those level 3, those doing well essays. And a level 4 essay is a kid who is able to both create a sequence of events or a sequence in their essay so they organize it well. They're able to bring in those abstract concepts and apply them. They're able to find high caliber evidence to support them. They're able to go out there and find a professor at the University of Tokyo who has written a paper on the Edo period and the long-term effects on Japanese identity, right? Those things, when I look at your essays, those are the things that really kind of differentiate things for me. I look at a kid who's done a very basic, that package usually is fairly easy for me to sit down and say, okay, this kid has done the requirement, has done what they need to do, has presented an argument. It makes sense. It is sequential. It's done and good enough. I'm able to look and say, okay, this kid is applying some abstract concepts, has sequence, has moderate evidence, and then the Killing It kids, you guys out there, I applaud you. I can differentiate between those three levels quite easily based off of some of the things that I've kind of said to you guys in this video. What I'm going to do next week is I'm going to make a video that shows the rubric that they use to mark essays. And it's basically the same all the way from grade 9 to grade 12. The marking rubric doesn't change a ton. I'm going to be applying it to your guys' essay. I'm going to simplify it in language for you so you can see it a bit easier, read it a bit easier, apply it to your essay a bit easier. And I will apply the rubric to the actual assignment when that rolls out. So I'm going to try and create all the things you need to be very successful over the next couple of weeks. There's going to be, so this is the third video in the series for this week of kind of unlocking what is an essay, how does an essay work, and how does an outline work to help me organize my thoughts, and then organizing it, that organization piece going into how are my skills and what fits, because there's a few things that are really hard as a teacher to mark. And it's when you see a kid that genuinely struggles with something like writing, but is trying to deliver a 4. And I appreciate that and I applaud it. But they try and do some stuff and they find evidence that is actually really not connected to theirs. And it actually has a tendency to create confusion in your writing. And there's almost nothing worse. So if you know that you are going to be writing a very functional get by essay, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a building block. It's a place on which we are going to build for next year and the year after that and the year after that. Okay. If you are in the do well area where like 60 to 80% of you guys live, cool. You are able to create organized thoughts and do work that is awesome. And we will work with you where you are. And the Killing It kids, those of you guys that find writing to be very life-giving, we will work with you where you are as well to help build your skills so that you will continue to develop further and further and further, so that down the road you'll be able to go into university, and when your teacher says, here's a paper on this, you can just knock it out of the park and your teacher will love your work. I really think it's important that you guys know which area you should be in so that you can start at a place of security and build from it. So I'm going to put that rubric up for you guys next week. I'm going to put the assignment out this week. Those of you guys that are listening to this point, I do not want it done in a week. This is something that we're going to build over the long term so that you guys can really build a high quality product. You guys can see what it looks like, because if you're in grade 7 or 8 and you're coming back for grade 9, I make my kids for social studies 9 write or in the range of 4 essays per year, maybe 5, but I make you guys write a few essays so that when you guys get to high school, you guys are well versed in the things that make an essay successful. Okay, we're gonna put in a week where it is just editing. You give your essay to a friend that you trust, and your friend gives you an essay, or you have your parents edit it, and you can submit it to myself and Mr. Chabot. Maybe we might be able to help you out with the editing of it. Anyways, this is not supposed to be done in a week. We really want you to go through the process and see the benefit behind the process so that you can build the best essays in the future that you can build. Okay. I will stop this video here. Use the outline. Start thinking about how you would write your essay, what you think you would put in your essay. Okay. You can write some of it down. If you print the essay outline out for yourself, you can start writing some of it down for yourself so you have it in front of you and start doing some of those organizational things. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I will talk to you guys next week. Just take 2 days and look through the videos and look at the essay question and begin to just kind of formulate a thought about what your opinion is and some of the reasons why. Okay? See you guys in a little bit.